Hi, it's Christine with the Sisyphean Journal. Today is January 13th, and I can't believe I never did a thorough post about the tragic death of 19-year-old Christin Gilbert. Christin was a 19-year-old woman with Down syndrome, and in 2005, her family discovered that she was pregnant. They went to a Planned Parenthood, but by then Christin was 28 weeks into her pregnancy. So the Planned Parenthood referred Christin's family to George Tiller's late-term abortion clinic in Wichita, Kansas. So an abortion at 28 weeks is a multi-stage procedure. Patients come to the facility for various steps, but they spend the bulk of their time at a nearby hotel. And at this time, Tiller had an arrangement where his patients would get a discount at the nearby La Quinta, and a staff would stay there to be on call. So essentially, he was treating the La Quinta as kind of an annex to his clinic for these medically necessary post-viability abortions. And this is something I'm always asking pro-choice people about. If these women's lives are in danger, why aren't they in a hospital? Why are they at the La Quinta? And I never get a satisfactory answer to that. And we'll see what happened when she was at the La Quinta. So Christin's parents brought her to Tiller's clinic on January 10th of 2005. Step one was meeting with Dr. Ann Christin Newhouse. Now, Kansas law stated that abortion past 22 weeks could only be performed if there was, quote, a documented referral from another physician not legally or financially affiliated with the physician performing or inducing the abortion, and both physicians determine that, one, the abortion is necessary to preserve the life of the pregnant woman, or two, a continuation of the pregnancy will cause a substantial and irreversible impairment of a major bodily function of the pregnant woman. Now, on its face, this is a nonsensical law, because by 22 weeks, the baby's viable. If this is a life-threatening pregnancy, or this pregnancy is threatening irreversible harm, you can induce labor or do an emergency C-section. You can have that fetus out of the woman and in the NICU within the hour. You can very, very quickly end that pregnancy that is a threat to the woman's life or health. But because at the time, this was before the Dobbs decision, the states had to have a health exception to allow abortions past viability because of Roe versus Wade. So they had this nonsensical permission that if you could get a doctor to refer you saying that you needed it, they could do it instead of just delivering the baby alive. So the way Tiller dealt with the law was he had a room in his clinic where Newhouse would meet with the patients and just fill out a little form, rubber stamp it, get her payment separately from Tiller's payment, and then they would proceed with the rest of the abortion. So that's what they did on day one. Now, there was also a 24-hour waiting period law in effect, but they didn't do that. She went straight in from her referral to get the abortion done. And Tiller was evidently in Kansas at the time, but his buddy Leroy Carhart was the one actually treating Christin Gilbert. And he injected digoxin on the first day, which digoxin is administered to kill the baby. It's very similar to what's used in a lethal injection execution. It's a heart medicine that an overdose stops the heart. It can be injected straight into the baby's heart. Sometimes Tiller would inject it through the soft spot directly into the baby's brain. Some doctors would just inject it into the amniotic fluid and hope the baby swallowed enough of it to die. So that was day one, and they put in laminaria, which are these little sterilized dry seaweed sticks. They pack the cervix with these. They absorb moisture, expand the cervix so that the baby can be expelled. So this is a 28-week abortion. They did the digoxin, inserted the laminaria, and Christin's parents took her to the La Quinta. Now, they brought her back the next day. Typically, what happens is they do an ultrasound to double check and see if the baby's dead or not. If it's not dead, they'll do a second lethal injection to make sure that that baby doesn't come out alive. Again, remember, these are abortions that are supposedly being performed because the pregnancy, the state of being pregnant, is a danger to the woman's life or health. But they're doing an ultrasound to make sure that they performing this procedure, this injection, to kill the baby. They're coming in the next day to make sure the baby's dead, and they'll do another injection if the baby's not dead. Now, how that's necessary to end this life-threatening pregnancy is really unclear. So, Christin expelled the dead baby on the way to the clinic for day 2. So they did a D&C to make sure there was no placenta in there, stitched a tear in her uterus, which it's unclear how that happened, and sent her back to the La Quinta. So the next day the family returned, January 12th. She seemed dehydrated, so they gave Christin IVs, but they did not even document how much IV fluid they gave her. The family went out to dinner, but Christin didn't have any appetite and she was unable to eat. Now, sometime between midnight and 4 a.m. on January 13th, Christin was cramping, bleeding, vomiting, and having fainting spells. So the family called Tiller's employee, Kathy Rivas, who was head nurse, even though she wasn't actually a nurse. She was the on-call person staying at the La Quinta to provide patient care. Again, he's treating this motel as if it's a medical facility. So Rivas went to Christin's room and instructed her parents and helped her parents to give her a warm bath, which is a weird thing to do when somebody's uterus has been wide open. I mean, if you've had a baby, you know you've been told not to take a bath. You're supposed to shower. Gave her a bath, put her back to bed. Rivas tried to call Carhart, who was supposed to also be sleeping at the La Quinta as the on-call physician. She couldn't get hold of him. Instead of seeking help from another doctor, she just went back to her room and went to sleep. Now, the next morning, again, still January 13th, Christin's family tried to wake her up to get ready to go back into the clinic, but she was unresponsive. Instead of calling 911, they put their unconscious daughter on a luggage cart to push her out to the family minivan and get her back to the clinic. And supposedly, she did recover enough consciousness to be able to walk with assistance into the clinic, but she very quickly crashed. She went into cardiorespiratory arrest. And here's where it gets really interesting, okay? Cardiorespiratory arrest. She is not breathing. She is clinically dead. They're doing CPR. The 911 call, the staff just said, oh, we just need an ambulance. Why? She leaves. She puts the 911 on hold. She's gone for 45 seconds to go talk. Why do we need an ambulance? And comes back and says, I don't know. She's completely awake and alert. She does not have any chest pain. So they're not treating this as an emergency call. They're going to be treating this as a routine transfer. Well, the medics get there. They get to the clinic. And here's this man that they later find out is Carhart on top of this patient trying to push fluid out of her stomach. And he clearly doesn't know what he's doing. They don't realize he's a doctor. They're telling him to get away from the patient. And they said they had to be very stern with him to get him away from the patient so that somebody who knew what they were doing could provide treatment. They found her lying in huge amounts of coffee grounds, blood, and fluid, way more than you would normally see. They loaded her in the ambulance to take her to Wesley Medical Center. They briefly were able to get a heartbeat going on the way to the hospital. When they got her there, she was bleeding from the mouth, vagina, eyes, and nose. Her parents were told about her condition and they started asking about organ donation. They chose, instead of aggressive resuscitation, to just provide comfort care, and she was pronounced dead at 4:14 p.m. But because of all the damage done to her organs during her ordeal, Christin's eyes were the only part of her body suitable for donation. The medical examiner concluded that Christin died as a result of complications from a therapeutic abortion. The most likely mechanism of death was sepsis. Now, Texas Attorney General Greg Abbott launched an investigation into the circumstances in Texas that led to that fatal trip to Wichita and summoned Tiller as a material witness, but no charges were filed against him for Tiller's death. No charges were ever filed against anybody. They never did bother to prosecute anybody for the sexual assault that got this girl pregnant. And in the meantime, in Kansas, Tiller didn't even get a slap on the wrist. Now, the medical board in Kansas is appointed by the governor, Governor Sebelius. Governor Sebelius and Tiller were like this. They were best buds. Tiller and his pro-choice PAC made large campaign donations. And Operation Rescue has pretty much concluded that that's why nobody ever did anything about this, and why he never got in trouble for this seedy setup he had with Christin and Christin Newhouse about getting all these abortions rubber stamped. So, beautiful young woman, dead, no good reason, kept at a hotel. If this pregnancy really, this was not a complicated pregnancy, Christin was healthy. But they rubber stamped it as a medically necessary abortion, took these steps to kill her baby. She wasn't in a hospital where she belonged. She ended up dead. And I've yet to see a pro-choicer who thinks that Tiller did anything wrong, because obviously he did things right. He's the abortionist. Tiller didn't do anything wrong. Carhart didn't do anything wrong. They're heroes. Why? Because they're willing to do a 28-week abortion on this young woman, even if she didn't survive it.